EDG episode 86. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How is it going, Dave? This is the second time we're recording today, which is a little weird. Started my day recording with Dave, ended the day recording with Dave.
I'm doing great. Right, the Pistons won the NBA lottery, so we're getting a new player. We get to pick who we want. My softball team won both their games. I'm actually starting to feel a little bit better. My overnights for remodels got delayed by like 2 weeks, so like my 4th of July is not like ruined. So it's been a good couple days. Yeah.
I forgot how bad that would have messed up any July 4th.
Not that we're doing anything like crazy, but it's just nice to have the option of like, hey, you know what? I really need to go home and go to sleep, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. But yeah, things are looking good. And like you said earlier, like the day you're listening to this podcast, maybe in a couple more days on your feed, we'll have the Ratchet and Clank spoiler cast showing up. It's going live a little early for the Patreon supporters first, as a kudos and a thank you to them. But only a couple days. And we'll get that posted to the main feed. And then we also just had all that E3 coverage. So if you haven't listened to the last 2 episodes, the numbered episode and then the E3 weekend recap, episode 85 and the weekend recap, 2 separate episodes, go ahead and listen to those where we go over all the E3 stuff. I saw something on Twitter today. I might be misquoting it, but like 400 games were announced over that like 7-day span or something like that.
Yeah, if you count like the Wholesome game, both Guerrilla Collective, Summer Game Fest, yeah, there was a ton of stuff. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if it hit 400. I think there was like some 60 games announced during one of the indie presentations. So I'm not like completely surprised. Yeah. Dave's still dying, as you can hear.
I still have a little bit of cough, but I feel great. Like I feel better. Like I just played a doubleheader of softball, and I didn't die. Other than that, like things are looking up and well. We are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that posts every Thursday morning, 6 a.m. Eastern time. You can go to the website, digitaldaysgaming.com, or your podcast service is a choice. Please consider subscribing. Leave a review if you haven't left one with words. It's always helpful. Helps us move up the algorithms, as well as just sharing the show. Retweets, shares on Facebook. I don't know, telling your friend you're listening to it. If somebody's been playing Ratchet and Clank, tell them about the spoiler cast. Somebody wants some information about E3, tell them about the 2 episodes we had. Maybe they'll like the show. Maybe they'll keep listening. So word of mouth is always a great help. With that, I'm send it over to Michael.
Yeah, it's the week after E3, so it's kind of a little bit light on the news, but there's still some stuff to talk about. Some funny, the things I consider funny, but the first one we'll talk about, mine and Dave's favorite thing, and that's acquisitions and all the weird financial stuff that happens in gaming. The recent one to happen is Tencent has now taken majority ownership in Jaeger. So Jaeger, known for Spec Ops The Line, they're also known for the original developers of Dead Island 2 before that game went into development hell. Tencent originally had a minority stake in them, but then I guess they bumped up to a majority stake. It doesn't sound too bad. Basically, this gives Jaeger some financial stability. They're currently working on a Battle Royale game called The Cycle, which I completely forgot
I didn't.
Was happening.
They better get that out soon, because that fad's going to, if they don't hit the mark,
Yeah, we'll talk about that in one of the questions. Gaming trends or fads that we want to stop. So The Cycle went into like a alpha or beta phase, and it's going to just be relaunched. Based on that early access feedback. So they are going to work from there to hopefully launch this game, but now they have some financial assurance, some stability with this Tencent acquisition, and also they have a new game that the head of Jaeger said was taking longer than expected, so now with this money, they can take all the time they need potentially, and it's just another company that Tencent is taken over or has a stake in.
I haven't,
as they continue to go around. Obviously,
correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't appear, at least from the outside looking in, that Tencent tinkers much with the stuff that they own or they have the majority of. They don't. It doesn't sound like I'm not hearing development issues or hearing like their board members are causing development hell or causing changes or. I mean, again, I'm not. I don't know if I don't think they're closing any of the studios. Like it seems like that they're just kind of like funding cash, and obviously they're getting return on investments. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep doing this. But they don't seem like it doesn't seem to be like a knife to the chest when Tencent's starts putting in some money into your company.
No, it's not like Vivendi tried to take over Ubisoft. Tencent is, they're a Chinese company that are just looking for different parts of gaming it can get in because it just wants to be a part of the gaming industry and wants to basically take over.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they're doing it is smart. It's like that slow takeover to
Mm-hmm.
where, in 10 years, it's like, oh, 90% of the video game industry
Right.
is owned by this one Chinese
And
company.
obviously
But for the most,
it might change, like as you saying, as they're doing the tortoise versus the hare, and they're obviously being the tortoise, and then all of a sudden, like you said, you look up in 8 years and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, like you guys are kind of getting on the borderline monopoly. But I'm not hearing like people get pissed. As an example, like when EA says they're going to publish, partnership with a company or publish a game, or a couple years ago, Activision's like putting their hands on something, and people are like, oh no, like they're going to ruin it. And I hear Tencent's name a ton, and it doesn't seem like it's like death.
no, definitely isn't. At least right now, I think they want to get in, and right now the companies are getting the benefit of just having the extra cash flow, having the assurance that like, hey, we have money coming in, to work on our projects. Tencent, in the future, especially as Tencent, their main business is like mobile and live service
Hmm.
games. I can see them starting to like, tip the scales in favor of like mobile or live service games as they purchase these studios. But they just have investments. Like they're invested in Ubisoft, they're invested in Epic Games. Um, they I think they own all of Roblox or most of Roblox. I think they own 51% of Riot Games. So they have big things that they haven't interfered with, but they're also things that make so much money they don't have to interfere. Like they've already got the return on
Hmm.
investment. Um,
NetEase is
and
kind of
I
doing the
think,
same thing too, right? Like they're kind of like
yeah,
dabbling around and
at a smaller
putting a
scale,
little bit
yeah.
here, putting a little bit there. The main reason I know NetEase names because they gave Bungie like a crap ton of money for their other IP.
Yeah, NetEase seems to be investing, but in a way of just like they're investing in products or specific games,
Hmm.
and Tencent is just like we're just investing in that studio because
Hmm.
that's where the long-term money's at.
Which
And
also means that I
they,
don't think that they're purchasing the IPs, which is also great for the studios. I'm sure they get
yeah,
percentages of revenue, obviously from the IP, but you've always heard the horror stories of like, not necessarily horror stories, but like THQ's was just been acquiring IPs just to make games, and then they own the IP, so they can do with what they want. The developers of these companies, like the Jaeger, can still they still own the rights to their games, which is great.
yeah, especially games that are companies that they only have minority stakes. It doesn't appear that yeah, they had a minority stake in Jaeger and they moved it to a majority stake, but it doesn't seem like they're trying that with every other company unless like the price is right. So we're not hearing anything from these companies. So we haven't heard about Remedy panicking because
Hmm.
they have 10 Cent has a minority stake in their company. So as of right now, it's not the worst thing in the world for 10 Cent to throw hundreds of millions of dollars at your studio. Uh, Long term, who knows what that will mean? But at least these studios can still publish a bunch of different games. They can get stuff out there, and then if things go bad, they can at least cash out
Yeah,
and just
the
make a new
part that'll be
studio.
interesting to see, like as an example, if this battle royale, the cycle game, let's say it just you know hits and it does well, maybe not Warzone or Fortnite well, but let's just say it does well, and Jaeger tries to purchase it back, or like that'll be where it gets interesting if they try to not necessarily purchase all of it back, but like, hey, you own 51%. How much would it cost for us to buy 5% back so that we have
Yeah,
control of it? That's where it might get interesting.
yeah. That's when a studio, if they want to do that, they have to hope they're not that successful.
Right.
To where it would cost way too much to bring it back. And also, I don't know if we know exactly how much. 51% is usually a majority stake in a
Hmm.
company. We don't know if they have 51% of Jaeger or it's more.
Right.
Obviously, the more 10 Cent owns, the less likely Jaeger will be able to get out of any sort of deal. But it's at least, if you look at it from a basic standpoint, it's at least money in the industry so people can get paid and then bail out when they can. And then we'll get smaller studios if
Hmm.
anything should happen. And Jaeger's kind of had a rough time. I mean, Spec Ops: The Line was the last like major game that they were able to produce because
Like
they were
10
doing
years
Dead
ago,
Island
right?
2. Probably more by now.
It was a
Uh,
PS3 game for sure. So
yeah, but then like they were they were working on Dead Island 2 for a long time.
And they
And
didn't do Dead
then
Island 1, right?
no, they didn't do Dead Island 1.
Yeah.
That was just Techland.
Right.
So like I would have to look at like what Jaeger has done since like Spec Ops: The Line. Uh another German brand. Yeah. Oh, they did Dreadnought. That
Okay.
was on the PS4. That was the
It was like
last thing
that was
they
like a
did.
free to play like mega ship outer space kind of game. I feel
Yes,
like
yeah, yeah. So nothing like a big scale, but yeah. So they did Spec Ops: The Line in 2012, Dreadnought in 2017, and then the cycle was early access 2019, and then they kind of took it down and are reworking it. So yeah, it's a studio that's been around for a long time. It's been
Yeah.
22 years. It's been founded since 1999, and they've only put out 4 games.
Yeah.
So they must take a lot of like extra work, and then of course the stuff that happened with like Dead Island 2, which I'm sure they got paid for their time on it, but
Hmm.
it just ultimately didn't lead to a game.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, tentative concern, but like I said, it doesn't seem like that they're tampering too much, Tencent wise.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think it's going to be a problem at least for a couple years.
Hmm.
Then in like 5, 10 years, when Tencent owns the whole industry, and it's just Microsoft versus Sony versus Tencent, and that's it. Um, we'll see what happens. Uh, the and another thing that Tencent might be doing is there's so much money in licensing, especially right now when you have like Microsoft and Amazon and at one point Stadia just trying to make Netflix like services that they can make a lot of money in licensing games. So that's why you would want to take stakes in different companies.
Hmm.
Uh, this news story I'd put in it just because it's funny. Square Enix is actually happy with some sales figures for a Western studio. Uh, Outriders, they said they were happy with the issues, happy with how it sold, and a part of it is with what Game Pass did for them. The exact quote is: "In regards to the response to Outriders, while there were slight issues with bugs and the like on launch, we believe it's gotten off to a good start for a new IP. In addition, we're pleasantly surprised with the digital sales ratio for a title have been very high. So the digital sales have been high for what they expected, and we know Square Enix has weird expectations,
Hmm.
so that's good. We believe the decision in making Outriders available with Microsoft's Game Pass as soon as the title launch also worked in its favor. Obviously, that's not a huge endorsement of like, hey, we made so much money because Game Pass, but it's one of those things where they're happy with digital sales. It's a new IP. Square Enix is notorious for having crazy high expectations and then just being bummed out when games don't reach those expectations.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I mean, like for a brand new IP, they had some stuff like at like the launch month of like I think it was like 3.5 million players or something. Um, Obviously, Game Pass plays a major factor into it. They haven't like touted any like physical sales like or sales figures. I haven't seen that come out yet. But it definitely seems that the implementation of getting it on Game Pass and then like we talked about earlier, like helping with the show, just word of mouth in general, um, is a huge factor. And I think that it coming out in April when, people had started becoming very comfortable with purchasing things digitally and doing stuff over the last, couple months because of COVID, it was just kind of one of those things where, maybe your buddies are online playing and you're like, hey, come play. And I don't have it. Oh, let me just buy it, download it, and you're ready to roll. And there was crossplay on it and everything. I mean, this is a huge, major game, I feel like this year that had, crossplay in it. I know Call of Duty has crossplay, but this was a new thing that people had access to either through Game Pass and then the ability to play with other friends. Say, hey, me and the two other buds are having fun. Like, grab it, let's go. All right, I don't have an Xbox. It don't matter, man.
yeah. Well, this definitely, like they said specifically, digital sales were high on this one, which makes sense because we're still in the COVID era. That's where consoles are moving, anyways, regardless of the situation where the world's in.
Hmm.
But also, Outriders, because of the Game Pass situation, it probably was a impulse purchase for a lot of people. Like if your
Yeah.
friend's on Xbox and is bragging about how much they're enjoying the game, if you're on PlayStation or PC, you might be more inclined to be like, you know what, fuck it, let me buy it. There's nothing else going on.
Yeah.
We'll talk about in the June Patreon episode of just like our games of the first half of the year. And when I was looking at my games, list, I was like, there wasn't a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
Outriders, got to take advantage of being out in a kind of slow year.
Mm-hmm.
So they definitely were able to take advantage of
And they're
that.
still kind of taking care of the game. Um,
But yeah, there's some.
they
So
just
they're not
upped the
like
drop
doing
rate of like
expansion.
legendaries, like huge. Like I mean, it's not a games as a service, obviously, but they, I guess like some certain drops in the game were really low, and like they
Hmm.
increased them by like 100% this week.
Yeah, and there's mention on like the Reddit that they're going to have another big patch with like hot fixes or just balance and adjustments. So even though this game isn't a live service game, people can fly are still supporting this game
Mm-hmm.
with different things, and there's no word on if this is going to lead to expansions because they kind of said like there were no roadmap plans for this game, but that could change based on how well it sold.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we're not too far away with Square Enix kind of coming out and being like, this sold better than we thought, that there might be a chance that People Can Fly can do an expansion. I don't know how fast they would be able to turn that around, though, from like, we don't really have plans to
Right. Hey, we got a
producing
thing.
something.
Like,
Yeah. But it's good to hear that it's selling well, and it's been out long enough that it'll probably start hitting like decent sales.
mhm.
That people will probably be more inclined to pick it up, especially as they keep patching and fixing issues.
Yeah.
Um, all right, let's get into this one. This one has the fans all over the place praying for one game, and I have a feeling it's going to get swerved into something else. But EA is set to revive an established IP. So EA Play is happening, I believe, July 22nd is what I wrote down in our notes. And there is a tease that they are going to be reviving a franchise. Video Games Chronicles, Eurogamer, and Jeff Grubb confirmed the news that this is real, this is happening. Jeff Grubb is teasing Dead Space, so I would imagine it's possible it's going to be Dead Space.
Do you think it's a remake or do you think it's a new game?
I think it's going to be a reboot, just because they killed the Visceral team,
Hmm.
and the creative director of Dead Space and some of the team from Visceral are now working on the Callisto project that they announced 2 years ago, a year ago,
Hmm.
that basically looks like Dead Space. So,
I gotta use the restroom. I drank too much Gatorade
okay,
at softball, so
okay, we'll pause. Dave's getting really old, guys, so he's got to go. I think it's like the second week in a row this man's had to run to the bathroom and recording. And the best part is I don't edit the YouTube uploads, so I this just stays in. This is going to be on YouTube. I was talking about old man Dave, who can't hold his water or Gatorade. I mean, I don't know what to do. I could vamp. I could do something, but this is all going to be edited out. Oh, so hopefully he's not lactose, because then he could be gone for a while. I don't think Dave's lactose. I don't think he's ever mentioned that though. Again, this is all staying in the YouTube video. Not looking forward to getting as old as Dave and then not being able to hold my bladder for an hour podcast. No one tell Dave that I called him old the entire time he was gone.
for the record, I did go before we recorded the show. I'm just saying.
I know. I'm just just making sure. I tell people that you're getting older. This happens when you get older. You just can't hold it anymore.
I've put down 90 ounces of Gatorade since 7 p.m. tonight, and it is 10 o'clock. Okay?
That is an unhealthy amount of Gatorade for beer league softball.
I'm kind of heavy, and I run a lot.
Okay. You hustle.
I'm still faster than some of the kids that are 10 years younger than me, for the record.
Okay.
And I got a pulled hamstring, and I'm still faster than them.
Okay. I don't know if we keep this in, but probably not.
I did go before recording, Mom.
We're gonna get you a catheter.
Yeah.
You have to have one.
That'd be dope.
2 weeks in a row, Dave.
I know.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So everyone is rooting for Dead Space. EA hasn't come out and said anything about this being Dead Space. I'm really worried that people are going to be bummed out if it isn't Dead Space now.
Watch it be Medal of Honor.
So I could have sworn EA re-registered the EA Big trademark not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if we're just going to get a random sports game.
We'll show you
And it's
we'll show
gonna
you
turn
character
into-
likeness. We'll just make our NCAA basketball big head game.
Yeah, like what if the revival of an established IP is this then being like, hey, here's the first footage of NCAA that we announced earlier this year.
NBA Live for real.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a racing game or anything like that. Jeff Grubb doesn't usually troll too bad. He's usually pretty upfront with his like hints. So I'm guessing it is a Dead Space. I just don't know, like. So the rumored studio is EA Motive, which worked on Star Wars Squadrons, and then I think they did Battlefront 2 stuff before that. I think they were helping Visceral with that canceled game as well. But I don't know. It just seems like kind of a shitty move by EA to be like, oh, the creative of Dead Space and some of the people are making their own Dead Space. Nah, we're gonna reboot a Dead Space. And I also don't know if EA can afford to have another prematurely announced game. We're still waiting for Skate. That was announced last year.
This time last year.
Yeah.
That was like, hey, it's a thing. Like,
but we have nothing to show you.
Yeah.
And if they skip Skate again at this EA play, or if they skip Skate 4 at this EA, that would be bonkers and that would be crazy. But I don't know. What do you think of like Dead Space? Do you think there's a chance it's going to be Dead Space with everyone hinting or corroborating the story?
So, I mean, we can talk about it a little bit more in what we're playing and watching. But I just got done with Jason Schreier's new book, Press Reset, and Visceral Studios was like a focus of that. Dead Space, in terms of like the perception that I got from the book as a franchise, did okay. It would break even, and it's like, okay, like let's try a second one and like build on the foundation you got from the first one and do a little bit better, and it did a little bit better. And then the third one, they try to add the co-op to it. I don't think that the Dead Space carries enough brand recognition to warrant doing this to it. It's not gonna sell 4 or 5 million copies in the first 6 weeks it comes out. It's just that franchise just doesn't carry that kind of weight.
Yeah, it's one of those plays by a publisher this big that it's almost like a goodwill gesture. You know, it's one of those things that they do because they're like, we'll break even.
But I think if they were even remotely thinking about it, they wouldn't have shut down Visceral when they did.
I think this is a move you make in response to what they're doing, and also you're looking at like your upcoming games from your bigger studios, and you're like, oh, everything's kind of far away. So you just like, can EA Motive, a team that we invested a lot of money into, can they just use one of our IPs we have lying around?
I guess if they clean it up, I mean, maybe it's like if they take all of the stuff that EA has, obviously from Dead Space 1 or 2 I mean, I don't know if they do this. Like, if they do a remake, would you expect multiple versions of the game to be on one game?
I don't know. I that's why I think it's just going to be a reboot. Like, because I don't know if you, I don't
Like,
know
are
if
you
there's
talking
that
like a
much.
reboot, like a Dead Space or like a Dead Space 4 kind of thing?
Yeah, just something that invokes the Dead Space style, but it's a completely different thing.
Dead Space
It's still
colon
called Dead
something.
Space.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because the trajectory of like the Dead Space series is very like starts at a super high, drops a little bit for two, and then drops significantly for three. And it's one of those things where I don't know if you really want a remastered trilogy of it. So I would just imagine you start fresh and try and put a new stamp
Hmm.
on Dead Space as a franchise. Because I don't think a trilogy necessarily works.
Right.
And
I think
like,
if it was like a remastering, I think it would have leaked by now.
yeah, because it would have been a quicker turnaround time.
Hmm.
Though I'm sure they saw how much money they made off of Mass Effect.
Hmm.
Like, what else do we have that
Right.
we could do this? I just hope it turns out better than the Mirror's Edge Catalyst.
Hmm.
Because like Mirror's Edge came out around the same time. It was like Mirror's Edge, Dead Space, and Dante's Inferno were like
Hmm.
EA's try at making new IPs, and all three of them failed basically, except Dead Space. Dead Space, I wouldn't even say Dead Space was a major success or anything like that, but of the three, Dead Space failed the least. And I just hope they don't do what they did with Mirror's Edge, where Mirror's Edge Catalyst was fine. But it did nothing to be like, yeah, Mirror's Edge won. It didn't sell because the world wasn't ready for it. It
Right.
just was like, oh, this idea just doesn't work in a fleshed out game. And then Mirror's Edge 2 was just like, well, we're not going to flesh this out much. We're just going to do this again uh, with a different story. So I hope they do something with Dead Space to like rewrite basically how that franchise ended up going. Uh, but it's definitely tricky. EA seems to. I always say EA seems to be doing really well now, but
Hmm.
it's really only Respawn
Yeah.
that's doing well. So I don't know
Do you
where
think
this
that
is gonna end up.
there's a nostalgia feel for Dead Space that people are
Oh,
maybe
for
are
sure.
forgetting that maybe it wasn't that? I've never really dipped into the franchise at all. Um, Mostly because like the psychological horror aspect of it doesn't appeal to me. But I mean, I've heard that they're functionality like good games in terms of like third person shooters and stuff, right? It's third person.
Yeah, yeah, third
Yeah.
person shooter. I think Dead Space definitely, when you look back at it, I don't know if the gameplay super holds up, but it has like a second life of streamers playing it
Hmm.
because it was an interesting title, and the first one was tons of jump scares, which is like super streamable.
Right. And then they kind of
Of
moved more towards like the
game.
action adventure style, right? As the franchise
Yeah,
like
yeah,
evolved. Yeah.
yeah. It got more into that, especially when like by the time the third game came out and there was like competitive multiplayer in it and co-op stuff,
Hmm.
and it like dipped into the microtransactions. It became more of an action game than a
Right.
like jump scare, like psychological sort of game that you can shoot your way out of every instance. So there's definitely a nostalgia for it. I just don't know. Like, I think they would have to modernize it
Hmm.
enough that like they can't just remaster it because there's so many games doing what like Dead Space was doing on a
Right.
different level or different aspects of what Dead Space was doing better than Dead Space.
Hmm.
But I guess we'll find out in like 3 or 4 weeks, in like 4 weeks exactly, I guess, from when we're recording. And then hopefully people aren't super disappointed if it turns out to be an SSX tricky EA big video game or something.
They are kind of hyping up this EA play, purposely like distancing themselves from E3. Um, so it'll be interesting to see.
Well, I mean, like, well, they'll have their sports games there. Um, they'll hopefully have something for Dragon Age. I would imagine we'd find out the next thing from Respawn, whether it's another
It's
Star
another,
Wars
yeah,
game,
Fallen Order 2. So
yeah, or if it's something else because Respawn can just do what they want. Uh, It's probably too soon to do another. I forget the developer's name, but the It Takes Two developer. It's probably too
Yeah,
soon to announce his next game. So I
Hazel
don't.
Light Studios or something. Or...
Yeah. So I don't know exactly
You think we'll
what
see
they.
Codemasters or whatever, like something whatever they've been working on since they bought them?
Yeah. So it sounds like when they were talking about Codemasters like a month or two ago, they basically were like, "We bought them, but they're gonna still do what they do." So I'm sure we'll see like this year's F1 racing or
Yeah.
something along
It'll
those
be
lines.
heavy.
Because
It'll be heavy,
Codemasters,
heavy Battlefield 2042. Like it's gonna be heavy
yes,
Battlefield. Um,
yeah,
heavy Battlefield, heavy Apex, whatever Apex has coming, which is fine. And then, like you said, like the Madden stuff, which they announced, like
maybe a tease for
the
NCAA.
yeah, the dual cover. Yeah, they might tease something with whatever they're gonna try or not try to do with NCAA. FIFA will be a big deal, and then whatever this reprise franchise is, and hopefully whatever Respawn's working on. Um, I don't think we're going to see anything new from Respawn this year. I think it'll just be a
No,
tease for next year. So
yeah, whether I'm wondering like because I know they're working on Jedi Fallen Order, but I wonder if there's like a time limit for their license with
hmm
Star Wars, since now Star Wars is hopping around of like you need to get Jedi Fallen Order out before the Ubisoft Star Wars games come out. Whenever that happens,
I think we'll see some
uh,
kind of Titanfall like expansion for Apex that kind of maybe focuses more on player versus environment instead of the battle royale.
that would be something I would love to see. Especially they were talking up a lot about like, oh yeah, Apex is this like our hub for making shit
hmm
now. So maybe we'll get some sort of co-op addition to that. But that's all I have for the news.
Okay. Uh, Playing and watching. Mine's going to be brief, just because I was on vacation. I had some graduation parties going on, and I was still kind of recovering, and also just kind of taking it easy. Um, Owen's done with school, so he got on this kick about wanting to play Super Mario 3D Land with me. Like he's always been like playing games and kind of messing around with the Switch on his own, but for some reason he wanted to play games with me. Um, and so I think it's like the Super Mario 3D Land or 3D World on the Switch is the like the port of the Wii or the Wii U version of the game. It's got 4-player co-op. Um, and it's the same, Mario principle. Collect a bunch of stamps and stars, and score a chase and multiple players on the screen at the same time. It's been fun. He is super enamored with. At the end of every level, it gives you it gives you a score for each player, and he gets really ticked off if he doesn't get a crown. But he's also kind of like zooming through the level all the time, so he's not looking for things and trying to find stuff like the hidden stars. Like I'm trying to help him. He had like 74 stars when I started helping him. I think we have like 210 now. Um, uh, but there's a couple things that uh, briefly annoy me about that game. The co-op does this, puts another character, like if one gets too far ahead of the other one, it puts them in a bubble and brings you closer to it, which I think is actually a really cool feature. It doesn't really make any sense how it works though. Sometimes like I'm ahead of Owen, like, and I would think it would put him in a bubble and bring him to me. No, it puts me in a bubble and takes me back to him. So
Okay.
it's kind of weird. Um, the shared live system is a really cool thing, but sucks when your 5-year-old dies all the time. um, and he's super, like I said, super enamored with getting the crown at the end of the round, uh, or the end of the level. He gets mad when he doesn't have the crown, and if I ever take any damage when I have the crown, he immediately, no matter what he's doing, he immediately goes to pick it up. And then he also wants the flag to be whoever the character gets the highest score on the flag.
Mhm.
It changes to that, and he's really mad if so. There's been plenty of times where I've like not gotten the flag and just sat there and waited for him to get it, even though it's like costing score. But the score doesn't ultimately matter. It's getting the stars to unlock more levels. There's a lot of content in that game, like
Yeah,
nine or
there's a
eight or
lot.
nine different worlds, and then you think you beat the game, and it unlocks like a rocket ship, takes you up to a whole nother like 6 or 8 levels. Some of those levels get kind of crazy. They're all like 3 or 4 minute levels, so they're fine. There's some kind of ridiculousness going on in that game.
Well, it's funny. That's one of those things where people always throw a fit at Nintendo for like, how can they charge $60 for it? But then those people play the game and are
Yeah,
just like, there's a lot of game here, and
yeah,
then they added stuff to it.
yeah.
So it's just funny how
I'm
that
like, we
always
beat the
works out.
game. He's like, no, we didn't. I'm like, oh, no, like the credits rolled, like we're done. He's like, no, there's like two other worlds. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, saw it on YouTube. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, go over here, and then like, boom, like there's a rocket, and then there's another 7 levels in space, and I'm like, what the heck? Like I already saved all the
Well,
things. Like,
yeah, that's one of the things that like makes me happy about like the Metroid Dread thing. Where
yeah,
people are like, how are they going to charge $60 for a side-scrolling Metroid game? And then you look at how they do every other one of their video games,
yeah,
and you're just like, it's going to be a way for them to justify $60 out of this game, or at least you hope,
yeah.
based on their track record.
So played a lot of that. Pretty much that's all I played since I completed Ratchet. Uh, watched Loki again, second episode. Like I'm kind of hooked right now. To like I can't wait to
It's really good.
see what else is going on. Watched a lot of basketball, like the games 5, 6, and 7 between like the Sixers and the Hawks were really really good. Same thing with like the Phoenix beating Utah. That was a shorter series, but then the Clippers and I can't think who the Clippers just beat.
The Jazz.
The Jazz, yeah. The Nuggets. It was the Suns and the Nuggets.
Yeah.
So like, and then watching a little bit earlier, like Devin Booker's just going crazy right now for Phoenix, and it's so cool to watch. And like I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
Pistons won the lottery, so we get to, basketball might be actually get a like almost watchable in Detroit again, which is a which is a big
I
a big win.
The thing that got me excited was watching the Sixers go out, and then immediately the whole city's like, "We got to get rid of Ben Simmons."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Welcome to Chicago, Ben Simmons." Please. As long as they don't give up Zach LaVine, like Ben Simmons can come over, and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah,
looking
especially the Bulls, they didn't get the draft
Yeah.
odds in their favor today, so they definitely need to make a trade for somebody.
Looking forward. Fast and Furious is this weekend, I believe.
Mhm.
So possibility of going to the movies over the weekend with my daughter and my wife. That would be kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, and then I finished. My wife and I finished Jason Schreier's book, Press Reset, and not as good as his first book, but definitely this one was more focused on the people that make games and how studios are treated sometimes. So if you really kind of care about the the gaming employment world of like where things work and how some studios and corporations handle things really well and others don't. They spent a significant amount of time talking about 38 studios. Super fascinating. The Kurt Schilling owned studios that did Kingdoms of Amalur and how he literally just stopped paying his people one day because he didn't have any more money. So
Grifter's got a grift.
it was crazy. And then other things like where studios like announced that it's closed and they kept 2 or 3 people there to port the games over, some of their mobile games or their live service games to the other studios, and those people that got paid to stay there to do that, or some places that got really good severance packages, and some places that didn't. It was just kind of interesting, and the video game industry can be fickle, like super super fickle.
It's a wild industry, and that's why you find out more and more of people that start in the video game industry and then they just move over to
Software
other tech
engineering,
sectors. Yeah, because it's just like it's too crazy and hectic to make all the art, and to get any game working is kind of a miracle.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fascinating.
I listened to it.
That's on my list.
Yeah, I listened to it on Audible. I don't read, and my wife and I listened to it in the car primarily. We had a couple graduation parties to go to that were like 30 minutes away, and we listened to it on other other drives that we had together this week. So if you like to read, obviously I think it's a good read. I enjoyed the audio part of it, so I would assume it's a good read.
Is it the same narrator from the first book? Because I really like the narrator.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's pretty much it for playing and watching for me.
So for me, it's finishing up Ratchet, but we talked about Ratchet in our spoiler cast that'll go live soon. So the main new thing I've been playing is Pokemon Snap, which came out I think like a month or so ago. So I'm playing that right now. It's exactly what you expect from a Pokemon Snap. They put you on rails pretty much, and you go and try and take as many photos of the Pokemon as possible. Only frustrating thing I'm having is I'm trying to create art. I'm trying to make beautiful Pokemon pictures, and all Professor Mirror cares about is the Pokemon being center. and big in the photo, which is kind of frustrating because every time you take a photo, you bring it to him and he grades it and then gives you points based on that, and then you points to build up your level. It's just super frustrating when I'm like, this is a really good photo, and then I show it to him, and it's just like, nah, this photo's shit. Give me a photo where the Pokemon are big. So he's got a weird fetish for how he wants his Pokemon photos to be. So I'm
Hmm.
kind of fighting that. But it's just kind of like, it's just a chill game to play right now. I'm just really into almost casual like games right now, where it's just like I just finished Ratchet and Clank. That's a fun game that doesn't really challenge you too hard, and then Pokemon Snap doesn't challenge you at all. So I'm playing that as a follow up, and I'm one of those crazy people that think the original Pokemon Snap is one of the greatest Pokemon games of all time because it pisses off Pokemon fans, but mostly because I just have fond memories of playing that game on the N64 and then trying to find the kiosks that were at Toys R Us so you
Hmm.
can print out your photos on really shitty paper. Um, so playing Pokemon Snap, that'll be a game that I will probably casually play over the next couple weeks because it's nothing really crazy. It's basically if Sarah's on Final Fantasy and I
Hmm.
just want to play something, I'll play Pokemon Snap. I have been playing my Switch a lot lately because I got a thing to review. It's called the S1 Fixture carrying case and mounts. So this is basically a cradle that attaches to a pro controller, like snaps in. It's a super tight fit, but it fits perfectly for the controller, and then the mount that the controller's in mounts to the Switch. So then you basically can have the Switch floating over the pro controller, which is huge for me specifically because I only like to play the Switch on the go. But because of that, that kind of dictates what games I play because some games are just kind of made for the Pro controller or just feel significantly better for the Pro controller than they do
Hmm.
for the Joy Cons. So using this amount enables me to display all the games that I want on the Switch without having to make any sort of compromise. Uh, Overall, it seems like a really sturdy piece of plastic. I'm sure it's going to be one of those things where I'll update you guys in 3 months if it doesn't like snap into the Pro controller. Because the only thing I have to worry about is the Pro controller snap getting loose over time. Because the way it mounts to the Switch is perfect. So you take the Joy Cons off the Switch, and it uses the rails for the Joy Cons to clip into this mount. So it's super sturdy, keeps it stable. So you don't really have to worry about like the Switch falling off
Hmm.
with this mount because it's using the rails from the that the Joy Cons would connect to. The only thing you would have to worry about is the Pro controller somehow not being able to snap in there over time. But 2 weeks of use, it hasn't really had any issues. It still can snap in, snap out, no problem. It wraps around the controller pretty tight, but you can adjust the screen exactly where it goes, how you want to angle it to face you, or if you want to, like hover over the controller, you can adjust it that way as well. So it's really nice. It doesn't add too much weight to the Switch overall because that was the one thing I was worried about is this like fatigue of having the Switch, the Pro controller, and then this really sturdy like plastic metal mount that's also there. So I haven't had any issues after multiple like 1 to 2 hour sessions with it. Because again, the Switch doesn't have the best battery, so you
Right.
don't have to worry about.
The controller
Uh,
battery is fantastic.
oh,
The
dude,
Pro controller is phenomenal. Even the Joy Cons like attached to the little
mhm.
holders that come with it to make a controller out of it. Like I said, we've been playing a bunch of Mario Land with Owen, and we haven't had to recharge that I can think of since I fully charged them. But the Switch itself, like, ooh, it's like 2.5 hours at the most.
Oh yeah, and like I haven't had to take it out of the mounts because the battery just never drains. Even then, it has a little slot for you to continue to charge it. But like for the Switch itself, like I have to take that off the mounting bracket all the time
Hmm.
after a session because I just use up the entire battery
Is there enough
after
room like
like
on the
a few
back for
hours.
like if you had that extra battery pack, like would that fit there still?
Um, since it's only no, not really, because
Okay.
it for extra support it connects to the rails and then it has a little backing piece.
Okay.
Um, but overall, like I'm happy with it, especially because like it really would dictate what games that I bought for the Switch
Hmm.
or play based on like, oh, this is like a super heavy actiony shooter game or something. I don't want to use the Joy Cons for that, so I'm just not going to pick it up. Period.
Right.
But now this gives me the flexibility of like actually playing games portable with a proper controller.
How much is it?
The So here's the thing.
Oh boy.
So the you if you are going to look into this, it also comes with a carrying case. There's an option to get it with a carrying case. The carrying case is really sturdy. It actually can hold the controller. It's molded for the controller at the bottom, and you can leave the Switch and the mount and the controller all connected together, and then just like click them in place and then put it in the bag, and you're good. And it's
Okay.
a really good way to probably travel with this thing, which I'm looking forward to doing once I'm ready to travel. Is to use this. It's $50 if you want the mount and the carrying case
Okay.
together, which I think is reasonable because there's a steady case and a mount is a nice idea. But if you want to buy things separately, they're selling the mount on Amazon for like $35, and I don't think it's worth it at that price.
Hmm.
It's only worth it if you're looking for a case as well, because for an extra $16, you get a case that they're currently selling for like $25. So the case by itself is $25, and the mount by itself is $34.99 right now, so $35
Hmm.
if you get them separately. But if you get it bundled, it's $50, and I think it's worth it for the $50 if you're looking for a travel case as well. And obviously, this is definitely like those products. This isn't going to be for everybody. I'm just a weirdo who at home prefers to use it portably. But like, definitely take a look at it. Like, I'll post some pictures of it on our Twitter account, and then there's some really good videos from Fixture that just show you what it does or
Hmm.
what it looks like and how it works. But definitely not going to be for everybody. It's if you travel with your Switch a lot.
If you travel with
It's
your Switch and you like to play with a Pro controller, here's your thing.
Yeah. Here's your thing. If you're looking for a steady case, it's a really nice case. Obviously, it's a little bulky because it's carrying a controller, a bracket, and a Switch, but it also has like all the slots for like the extra cartridges, and it also has like a little pouch if you want to fit some Joy Cons in there, which you can. So you can take pretty much everything in
Hmm.
this thing except the dock. So this is definitely, if you're looking for something like this answers those needs. It is going to be a little bit pricey, but it is something I would recommend. It is something I'm going to definitely be using for a while. Next time I meet Dave, hopefully, I will still be using this, and hopefully, the Switch Pro will be the same size as this thing, because I really do like it. But it would be something if they announce a Switch Pro and it's slightly different, I would probably look to this company to make another mount, and I would probably buy that mount just because I do like playing the Switch like this.
That's
And I won a
awesome.
Tetris 99 game with it,
Yeah.
like the first time I was playing it, which was nice. So that is basically what I've been doing since playing Ratchet, is just testing this out with all the different Switch games that I've bought, played with Joy Cons, and were like, I can't do this, and then getting a second life
Yeah.
by using this thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So questions and comments for the show, you can send those to us using hashtag AskDigitalDays. You can post them on Facebook, Twitter, Discord. All those links are in the show notes, so check those out. Chip sent us a question. Which presentation at E3 were you most or and least impressed by? So I guess the one that I would say like least impressed by would be Coach Media, because it seemed like it was just nothing.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a given. Most impressed. I mean, the one that showed the most stuff is Xbox. Uh, in terms of like
Yeah.
they showed games, they dated stuff, they showed what the future is. I was kind of I would say I was impressed by Square, because Square showed Guardians of the Galaxy and it said it's coming this year, and they showed gameplay, but I wasn't impressed by whatever else they showed. So
Yeah, the rest of that show was
yeah,
kind of like
but
disappointing.
Guardians is definitely one of the top three things that I saw from E3, so that's a factor into there. Um, it has to be Xbox because of this. Like, to be honest with you, the stuff afterwards, the extended presentation, and then their marketing now, like the 6 games in 6 months thing. Like, this is what people want.
Yeah, they want to know what games that they're going to be able to play and then they have a whole roadmap for the rest of the year on how that's going to play out. Yeah, I would say it's like a tie between Xbox and Nintendo. I really like the stuff that Nintendo did. I can see why Nintendo didn't do uh, enough for some people, but there was enough games that were my type of games during that Nintendo press conference that I was really happy with.
Nintendo didn't
So
do
it's
enough because people thought they were going to see more. They thought they were going to get a date for the new Zelda. They thought there was going to be a new
yeah.
Switch, and it wasn't there. So,
But yeah, as someone who doesn't care about Zelda,
right.
I was fine with what they showed. I was more happy with Metroid stuff and the Danganronpa news and
Hmm.
so all the little stuff they did. Uh, yeah, so I would say it might be even a three-way tie because Summer Game Fest also put on a pretty good presentation. I I don't even want to count Coach Media as like a presentation. That felt like they just showed up because they felt they had to. This was the I forget who made this joke to me, but someone said it was like the who was the Seahawks guy who just like came to the press conference because he had to.
Oh, Marshawn Lynch. Yeah.
Marshawn Lynch. That's what that felt
I'm
like.
just
Like
here
they
so I
just
don't get fined.
yeah, and that's basically Coach Rader's like we're just here so we have a booth next year.
Yeah.
Like they came to show up. So between them and Gearbox for worst presentation
Hmm.
probably because the Gearbox one was garbage. That was just Randy Pitchford walking around the set for the movie, showing absolutely nothing of the movie, showing very little of the game. And you could tell, like, it almost felt like no one wanted him on set. And because they didn't give him anything to even really do. So those are probably the two that I was, like, least impressed with. But overall, like, I was really positive about this show. And I still stand by it. Like, I
Hmm.
think everyone did relatively well except for those two.
All right. Um, Andy Sam 25 on Twitter. It seemed like everyone went from hype about Back for Blood to angry about the online requirement. While I don't think it's the greatest idea, I'm still going to play it. Does this affect either of your plans to check the game out? Go ahead.
No, it's a co op. It's an online co op game first.
It's an
that,
online
yes,
shooter.
yeah, that yes, it has the ability for you to play single player, but they're selling this as an online co-op game. So like when I heard it was always online, I'm like, yeah, I
Duh.
was gonna play this online no
Yeah.
matter what. Like,
Balancing, patches, weapon tuning. Like, it's all going to be needed. It's all going to be necessary. You need to connect online.
yeah, I'm fine with it. Doesn't kill my hype at all. I already know I'm gonna
I think this
download
game
it
would
on
get
Game
boring like
Pass.
very quickly if you only played against the bots. Like very quickly.
Yeah, like I've played Left 4 Dead solo before on PC, and it's not great. It's fine, but there's not much there. Uh, Back for Blood is a social game. It's a
Hmm.
Left 4 Dead game. Dead games are social. I know I'm downloading it day one on Game Pass, and my friends are already committed on PlayStation to buying it day one. So I'm just gonna play that entire game with them, even if it means I'm staying up till like 4 or 5 a.m. But it's just I have very fond memories of Left 4 Dead playing that with my friends. So I'm looking forward to playing Back for Blood. It always being online doesn't affect me because I never thought there would be an instance where I would play it solo.
Right. All right. And Jacob sends us a question. What is the genre slash type of game that you wish you would be less trending so that we could have different types of games? Think, why are there so many sandbox games or battle royale like games? What genre type do you want to see rise up?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Um, Kind of tired of sandbox games. I don't have time for sandbox games anymore.
Hmm.
As I get older, I just don't have time for it, or I don't have the patience for
Hmm.
like, here's a huge map, do all the things on the map. Uh, I'm kind of getting tired of third person open world games
Hmm.
as well. I think this is also like a time thing. I like linear games.
Hmm.
I just like being on that track, doing that story stuff. So kind of tired of third person action games. I don't even think battle royale games are much of a thing anymore to be tired of. Like, or at least none are
It's just they've
floating to
taken
the
they've
top.
taken over the multiplayer shooter genre essentially.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't see them as like even bothersome anymore. Like the companies that were trying to make ones, they just stopped. Housemarque were making one, they just stopped, and then they made a great game in Returnal. So it's
Hmm.
not even that bad. Um, so I think I'm fine. And I think we're almost over every game trying to be the Dark Souls of
Hmm.
whatever specific thing they're trying to do. Uh, so I'm fine. I would just want something new. I don't know. I don't know what genre I would want to replace those
Yeah.
genres I'm tired of. I
Um,
want to see new stuff.
it's gonna be a little shocking to some people. I'm actually pretty fatigued on looter shooters.
Yes, that
Um,
I am also fatigued.
Destiny is in a class by itself. They you know partially because I'm just so invested in it, but like the Division and all these other games that tried to bring like RNG loot stuff into it, even like Biomutants kind of bleeding into that a little bit, and that kind of surprised me and irritated me while I've been playing it. So that genre I'm kind of like played out on. Sure, Borderlands established it and did a great job with it at the beginning, but it has since been done better and passed them by. And something I think I would love to see come back. The first thing that jumps into my head is like a really like a sim racing style, like Need for Speed Most Wanted kind of thing, like an arcadey, fun to play like racing game, um, like a Cruising USA style thing, like that Switch port that's coming looks really cool. Um,
Horizon kind of fills that role just a little bit, but not quite
yeah,
all the way there.
just yeah, I should probably check out some of those games because I haven't really done that before. I need to, I mean, I'm paying for Game Pass. I need to kind of dive deeper into Game Pass and try to just kind of mess with some things for a little bit, an hour or two. I didn't even check out any of those demos, and I really wanted to, and I just kept forgetting and putting it off. Um, but I would definitely like to see like another fun sim racer. I don't want drive clubs and GTA's. Like I really liked Need for Speed, Most Wanted, Hot Pursuit. Like I had a bunch of fun for a little while with the Burnout Burnout Paradise remastered. Like that was fun. It died.
Midnight Club.
Yeah, it died quickly, but for me, it died quickly. But
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I would definitely love to see that. I don't know much about this next question, so I'm actually gonna kind of just let you take it, and I'm gonna listen to it, just because
Yeah.
I don't really care. Sorry,
All right.
Lebetsky, I love you,
Yeah.
but this type of game and this genre, like I'm good. So-
That we don't even know.
or
All right.
alleged to be, I'm like I'm out. I'm
Yeah.
good. So,
All right. Levitsky asks, I want to hear your thoughts on Blue Box Game Studios, the whole abandoned game and app. Why Sony hasn't commented on it still? Is Kojima or Konami involved? Go down a rabbit hole. All right. So the first thing I'll say, if you don't know much about it, check out Chandler Wood's article on
mhm.
PlayStation Lifestyle. I feel like he was one of the first people to write like a comprehensive article connecting all the dots, and then some other sites kind of followed with their own investigation. So check him out, friend of the show. Uh, Blue Box announced a game a couple of months ago. We talked about it. Abandoned. People immediately assumed Abandoned was a secret Kojima game because it didn't make sense. It was a studio no one's ever heard of announcing a game on a PlayStation blog and announcing it's going to be exclusive for the PS5. Kind of odd. PlayStation blog has kind of turned into a thing where that's where you go to announce your games, or that's where Sony announces partnerships. So it seemed kind of weird. Things kind of died down a little bit, and then it just got weirder and weirder with how things rolled out. The Blue Box Game Studio, people dug into. They only had some early access game on Steam that just kind of went away. The head of the studio had like a fitness app called PT, Personal Trainer, on his library. They could find literally nothing. There's a bad Google Translate thing, I guess, that the head of the studio's name translates to Hideo in Japanese. So people are like, that's weird. The Blue Box game studios have been teasing Silent Hill. They're following Kojima. Kojima's following them. Jeff Keighley's involved, kind of hinting that he doesn't know, but he's interested in working with them. Uh, this stuff is kind of crazy. It seems like everybody's kind of into the same thing. Kojima was like posting pictures that look very similar to Abandoned. The biggest thing that makes me think this is going to be something bigger is um, the fact that there's going to be like a real-time trailers app on PS5. One would say it could be a playable trailer, not a playable teaser, but a playable trailer that was supposed to go live today, but it got delayed a couple days, and it's coming out Friday. the partnership with Sony, where they announce on a blog that they're going to be exclusive, raises a red flag of like there must be more to this game for that to be a thing. But then also the fact that this studio that's apparently really small doesn't have a ton of money are putting out a real-time trailer app, which we have no idea what the fuck that even means. But they're putting out an app to promote their game on the PS5. On the PlayStation Store, you'll be able to download an app and mess around with the trailer. That just seems like a crazy thing that like not a small town time studio would be able to put the resources into unless they had some sort of backing. What I'm suspecting is Kojima has nothing to do with this. They're just Kojima seems like one of those dudes that if you're like, hey, you send him a DM and you're like, hey, I'm a developer, I kind of want to fuck around with people. Kojima probably would be into that and would help fuck around with it. But primarily, I think that because I still think this is a partnership with Sony, and Kojima and Sony are pretty tight, and Kojima would probably just be down to whatever this is. I think this could be leading to some Silent Hill shenanigans, with a partnership, obviously, with Konami, who Konami started to follow Kojima again, which is super fucking weird. Konami is promoting, they're opening up like the Silent Hill store on their website this week, which also seems super weird. So it's either all these people are just like, you know what, let's just embrace this chaos, or there's actually some sort of deal and someone's cutting a check for Kojima just to say or to deny and also pretend he's involved in this game. But it's absolutely crazy. I've gone back and forth like 5 or 6 times whether I think this is a Kojima game or this isn't a Kojima game, or if this is a Silent Hill game or if it's not a Silent Hill game. It's absolutely insane. I'm excited for it. I really hope this studio knows what they're doing, because if this isn't Silent Hill, this isn't a Kojima game, they are fucked. Like, no matter what, the backlash will be really, really bad. In terms of like, if this just turns into like, oh, hey, we're just making that game that we showed that was just a trailer of a dude like shooting his gun in the woods. Like, this needs to have something big around it, or these developers have shot themselves in the foot. They have somehow topped No Man's Sky level of, you know, marketing of like getting people to like believe the hype only to disappoint them at first. So I really hope this turns into something big, because otherwise I am very afraid for like the backlash this game can get. And
Yeah.
also Sony for kind of allowing this to happen without coming out and being like, hey, so we partnered with them for the blog. They did all this crazy marketing. We let them release like this weird experimental app on our store, and we just let them do it to do it. Like, there needs to be something more to this, or this is gonna go bad. But yeah, that's all my scattered thoughts on this craziness that I guess we'll find out Friday, when the internet destroys this real-time trailer.
Yeah, it'd be. I mean, it's cool. Like, and like when this stuff, like I remember messing around with like the PT demo, um, but it's just kind of one of those genres. Like, I don't care about Silent Hill. I again, like they look like they're games that are a ton of fun, and if you're into those horror slasher movies and stuff like that, like that's great, and that's for special people, and I'm not one of those special people. So special, as I'm just saying, like everybody has their thing that they enjoy, and I just don't want to be like. I like to play video games to have fun and to shoot shit with my buds and
You don't like anxiety.
yeah, I'm like I get enough of that. Like Last of Us is heavy enough as it is, and Uncharted, and some of these stories that like as these video games are developing or trying to build, and which is great. But I just don't need something like that super heavy. Even we were doing that VR event years ago. I'm like, you can mess with that game. I don't want to. I don't really feel like getting something screamed at my face. Like, I'm good. So. But I think it's cool that like there's all this speculation, but I kind of agree with you. Like, these people are like overhyping themselves, and they're gonna be disappointed.
Yeah, like if this real-time trailer, this RT or whatever this you want to call this, comes out and it's just promoting Abandoned, there's going to be a lot of disappointed people, and Kojima's not going to want to deal with that backlash. Konami and Sony aren't going to want to have to deal with that backlash. I hope there's more to this thing. Uh, Even if there isn't, it's kind of cool that all these companies are kind of letting
Mm-hmm.
this happen without jumping in there and being like, hey, guys, settle your expectations.
Mm-hmm.
But it still could be kind of bad if this
Yeah.
doesn't turn into something. But I'm going to download whatever this playable trailer, real time trailer is. And I will look forward to people cracking the code within like 2 hours and
Mm-hmm.
posting YouTube videos if I figured it out. Uh,
For sure.
but yeah, it's just it's so crazy. Like the video game studios, basically did the PlayStation Studios logo, and
Mm-hmm.
then they like inverted the colors and then used the font, and they have their profile is public, like his
Mm-hmm.
PSN profile for the head of studio of Blue Box Studios, and he's playing games that don't exist on PSN
Mm-hmm.
or on PS5. But there's so many like weird things happening with this thing. Uh, that if it turns to be nothing, like fuck,
Yeah.
that's gonna be bad.
There'll be a Eurogamer show or Eurogamer article linked, as well as like Michael mentioned, Chandler's article, kind of a breakdown of it.
Yeah,
So be sure to check those out if you want to see more like connect the dots, playing deeper dives into it. So all right, so that's our show. You can follow us on the social networks. Twitter is the first one we use primarily. The main account is at Digital Days Pod. Michael's account is at the first MJC 1ST. Mine is at Good Dave Hunt. Feel free to join our Facebook group, Discord server. Those links are in the show notes. If you want to support us financially, you can do so through Twitch. If you have, we have an affiliation with Twitch. So if you have Amazon Prime with Twitch Prime, if you took advantage of some of that Prime Day stuff and maybe got a free Prime subscription or something for a month or 90 days or whatever they were offering, you link that with your Twitch account. You can drop a subscription. You get that for free as a perk for Twitch in Amazon Prime. So if you want to check that out, just click the subscribe button. If you have your accounts linked, it'll say, subscribe with Prime. If you want to do that, that'd be super helpful. It's a great way to help us. And then also Patreon. So patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming. $1 tip jar, $3 Discord access, $5 24-hour early access to the regular numbered shows, $7 is the monthly bonus episode. And like we mentioned earlier, they're going to get a couple days access to the Ratchet and Clank Spoilercast. So that'll probably go to, I don't even know, maybe all Patreon subscribers. We'll see.
yeah.
So, but definitely check that out. And then it'll show up on the normal feed as well. So I don't have anything else. You got anything?
No, I'm just gonna take some more photos of some Pokemon as soon as we're done with this. So,
I'm gonna go to bed. So I got to work. So, I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
don't be a dick. See ya.